by the military-industrial complex.
I'm just a patsy.
I have a dream.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
You think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAP.
Well, you have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so that's not so bad.
Exactly.
I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
And we're back. How you doing, George?
Peter, I got to give you kudos.
Oh.
The Matt-A-Lago. The Matt-A-Lago is Trump tweets out Matt-A-Lago, and you have a graphic on Matt-A-Lago 30 seconds later.
Well, I saw it on your Twitter stream though. I actually had to go activate my Truth Social account in order to go find it. But I guess that was a reason for me to activate my Truth Social account.
This is better than Kofev. Everyone said that COVID was going to be the thing that deposited some kind of iron particles for some kind of field effect. Fe, the first Fe was the iron, the second Fe was the field effect. And Trump. If you remember,
George, is that a Q thing that you're saying? Is that it kind of sounds Q-ish to me.
No, we're not Q people here. Okay. Well, if you remember the whole Kofev thing, this is supposedly Trump tweeted out Matt-A-Lago and Mar-A-Lago. And if you look, the R is right next to the T. It could have been a mistype.
Sure.
But he typed it in reference to this raid. Right?
Right. So I have a question, though, for the audience, because I don't know this. On Twitter, if you mistype something, you're done. Like, you have to delete the tweet or you have to start all over again. Can you edit your truths in Truth Social? I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't gotten on Truth Social. I don't know if this raid is trying to get people to Truth Social or whatever, but he did tweet out Matt-A-Lago. And for people, I'm just saying, if you were a part of the group that thought Kofev or Fev,
right,
BFE, Kofefi, which was iron field effect, which I'm telling you, if you take in nanoparticles that are iron and nanoparticles, if they do get in your bloodstream and they accumulate in your spleen over time, you will develop a little dark area around your spleen. I mean, they use it for chest imaging. So I don't know if that's how they identify terrorists or not with nanoferritin or not. Some of my partners or my research partner thought that was the answer. But if you can believe in Kofev, it's sort of like if you can believe in peanut butter, you can believe in Peter Pan.
Yeah.
If you can believe in Kofev, then you can believe in Matt-A-Lago.
Right. But it might just be a happy coincidence or, subliminal genius. Right.
I think it's subliminal genius. Trump is I think he's playing 5D chess with the FBI here.
Okay, and you were never like a big fan of the 5D chess hypotheses before, right?
No, I wasn't a Q person, but so I was over at the courthouse today. I was over there last night.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this thing's all going to be at the courthouse. This is the same courthouse and police department that did the Jeff Epstein investigation. So it's not like everybody's worried about a lot of transparency and fairness here.
Right.
They're expecting the worst. They're expecting cover-ups. That's what this police department and courtroom do well. And that's where Reinhardt is over here, where we were today and last night. So I'm predicting last night, this is where the big action is going to be. And sure enough, Reinhardt comes out and says, we're going to have a hearing on Thursday at 1:00 to determine whether they've already published the warrant, but now the backup to the warrant is the affidavit.
Right. Yeah. The warrant itself is just a boilerplate, right?
Yeah, it has the boxes, the 15 boxes, and it says box 12 is the president of France, or actually box 2A says it's the president of France, top secret, secure, compartmentalized information, 2A, that sort of thing. It's a list of it's a laundry list of what they picked up.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to justify the warrant, you got to have somebody who's credible and says, I've actually been in Mar-A-Lago. I know the top secret information of the French 911, the president of French 911 is in box 2A.
Right.
It's in the storage room. And here's a map. Task force used to actually have to draw like a little sketch and say, okay, here's where the safe is. Here's where the couch is. Here's Melania's closet. Here's the safe. It's right there. And then the judge would give the warrant. So it has to be somebody who's been inside of Trump, not only inside of Mar-a-Lago, but also had access to top secret files. There's very few people that have had access to top secret files at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, when I was doing research on his father, Stanley, this morning, when I was trying to make the graphic, like I was trying to look things up as fast as I could, his father is partners with David Boies in defending Epstein victims. So
he did a really good job there too. 20 years and he didn't get a dime.
Well, yeah, and he made sure that all of the John's names were revealed when Ghislaine Maxwell got convicted. So he's doing a great job of making sure that everybody's got all the information that they need.
I was over there, I was just talking to somebody who watched him come up and down the beach with Ghislaine and him recruiting girls here and so forth. And how do you get away with that? How do you get away with 40 girls being recruited here? And they had all the pictures. So 20 years go by where not a glove is laid on him. Then you have a real slow trial.
You're talking about Epstein.
I'm talking about Epstein, but
right,
I'm saying that if he's representing victims, he's the worst attorney ever, or he deliberately threw the towel in so that they didn't get a dime.
Well, again, in the controlled opposition kind of space, I don't think media is the only place that happens. I think that, if you've got a bunch of victims and you want to make sure that the story is managed as far as the media is concerned, then what you want to do is you want to control both sides, right? And so you have somebody from a high-powered law firm offer pro bono services to victims and say, I want to represent you, I want you to get you a big settlement. And maybe they do get them a big settlement. Okay, but at the same time, if they get them a big settlement, they make sure information like the John's names and things like that never get revealed. So, the victims feel like they're satisfied. People get some sense that there was some kind of justice, but then we still don't know actually who the perpetrators were.
Yeah, and Stan Pottinger, writes books about building nuclear bombs. Stan Pottinger writes books about Nazis that start pandemics to lock down and overthrow governments. Stan Pottinger sued Donald Trump's father, I believe, in a anti-discrimination lawsuit. So again,
he was the one who filed that lawsuit?
I believe so. If you get into this world here,
I know, but the reason I'm laughing is just because it's like somebody said something to me earlier today that when you start to see all of these coincidences, it really starts to make you believe in simulation theory, that there's really only 10,000 actual entities, thinking entities in the world, and the rest are just kind of NPCs that are here to make us believe that the universe is much bigger than it is. It's because the number of overlaps, the number of coincidences is just, it's kind of mind-boggling when you get into it.
I'll give you a few more. Stan Pottinger's the guy who said all the people that worked on the MLK FBI investigation are dead. When he was the assistant attorney general. It turned out there was a lot of guys that were alive. They stepped forward and said, "Hey, wait a minute, I worked on that." So he's basically saying you don't need to look at that MLK thing anymore. And
so he's a spook attorney in the mold of like Alan Dulles, for example, spook attorney, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who, like Dershowitz, probably plays that role now. We're going to make you think justice is going to happen. We'll delay you for 20 years, and then everybody will be so old that you can't believe they were never an Akonos lure. Some of the women that were testifying in the end were grandmothers.
Right.
You know, it had been so long, it had been 30 years since their incident. And, you know, they put forward certain individuals, and then they put other ones behind the scenes that didn't let them talk and put all kinds of gag orders. This is Stu Pottinger, right here right where I'm sitting, right here in West Palm Beach. So the fact that he sued Trump before, and now Pottinger is going to be the FBI guy that pulls the pins out from under Trump, doesn't really surprise anybody in Palm Beach. They're like, we're going to get that Trump. We don't like him here on this island anyway. Let's get rid of him.
Yeah, well, when I was listening to Kash Patel when we were talking the other day, talking about how they were going to claim national security sources and methods would be the reason that they would say, oh, well, we can't reveal the stuff on the rest of the search warrant because it's going to reveal our sources and methods. Then what they've done is they've kind of like reinvented slap and seal, right? They've created a raid in order to be able to seal the evidence. So it's slap and seal, you know, on steroids.
Yeah, I was over at the courthouse and I saw the two cases that had gotten closed. There was 2 federal cases that you could look at the docket and look at the things, and then they were closed. And then also Hillary Clinton in the Trump versus Clinton case last year for defamation that he opened last year. Hillary responded today. Is that because she had 4 days and Peter Strzok had 4 days to look and see what they got from the raid and found out that they weren't going to put their foot in a ringer, and they responded? So she responded today, August 16th.
Interesting. Did you see Jim Acosta there covering the story?
The only reporter, they'll figure out where the courthouse is pretty quick, I think, now, because Voice of America, I give credit to Voice of America. This gal,
Tucker Carlson's father's old outfit.
And she said, well, I said, where are you from? And she goes, Voice of America. You probably haven't heard of it. I mean, the one I walked by.
Wait. The one guy who probably knows more about Voice of America than anyone on the planet. And she goes, oh, you probably haven't heard of it.
As far as people who are not like born in the basement of Voice of America, but I walked by it every day on the Capitol. And when I said this, Rodney Fisk, the South African who negotiated all the 20,000 nuclear warheads from Russia at the end of the Cold War to go to a place in Ohio called Piketon. And remember, there was a whole bunch of the uranium that didn't make it there.
Megatons to megawatts.
Megatons and megawatts. Remember how Israel ended up getting a lot of that? And remember how Iran got a lot of that? And North Korea and Libya and Syria.
Curious.
South Africa. Interesting. I went to the house after he died. This is during the trial of the Uranium One trial. And guess who was living there? The woman who was the spokesperson in Afghanistan for the Afghanistan war for Voice of America.
Right.
It could have been a plumber that bought the house. No.
Well, Voice of America was the original line item for the Smith-Mundt amendment. So the Smith-Mundt amendment to the Defense Authorization Act was the first thing that was passed to pay for was basically propaganda overseas. So it's interesting that Voice of America, which is, you know, ostensibly a propaganda outfit, that's their charter, is there with you covering the story.
I swear to God, they're following me because I was there last night and they came today because Voice of America is the only one who's figured out where the hearing's going to be, other than myself. And so they want to counter. And
I was kidding about Jim Acosta. I thought,
yeah. Give him 2 more days.
Maybe Matthew Russell Lee if somebody gave him a plane ticket, but you know.
Yeah, signature reduction.
Yes.
You know, make sure that the Voice of America story's out there, that Trump's going to get what's coming to him. He's the one who mishandled classified information. And if you're working in Washington, D.C., this should be a lesson to you that nobody's above the law. That's the big Voice of America, going to be their story.
Right. Well, Voice of America will wind up being the pool service for the Daily Mail, right? France 24, name your foreign outlet. They'll all be watching Voice of America and writing
Voice
it
of the
up.
World and Der Spiegel and all that. Yeah, I totally agree with you. But your thing, Trump, if he was to say, I think the person, the federal informant, is Matt Pottinger, he would go to jail, right? Because he's exposing. There's a Classified Witnesses Protection Act in 1992 or something like that. So you can't expose the names of intelligence officers.
Right, and that's why I put a question mark at the end of it. And if you look down below, you see the high octane speculation banner, because we're guessing here, but it's based on a rubric of evidence, right?
Yeah, I don't know what year the act was, but you can't out an intelligence agency person. You could go to jail for that. So what does he do? He clicks the T, an understandable mistake when he's clicking Mar-A-Lago. Trump never makes mistakes when he's typing names of his properties. He's never misspelled Mar-A-Lago before, but he does it twice in 2 days. Okay, maybe not. If you can believe in Kafif and
his thumbs are getting less agile.
Yeah, his thumbs may be getting less agile, but it is all coming down to this affidavit. There is like a very few number of people who know where top secret information would be stored, and the affidavit would have to have that. And the FBI appears that they were directed to the appropriate place because they said they found the president of France box 2A. So now the key question is, what's the French connection? How does this thing possibly connect to France? France certainly top secret wouldn't be anything related to January 6th. So we can throw that out the window. Would it be related to who built the Wuhan Institute of Virology? Well, it was the French. It was Mariu Incorporated. So through Sanofi at Venice. So, and who were the first athletes to get sick? I remember I apologized to Dave Underdown. I see him in the audience. He was like, why wouldn't you say, if there is going to be patient zero, it would be Elodie Claudel. I remember this discussion in the French gold medalist, because we have proof that she was sick and she says she was sick. Why aren't we saying Elodie Claudel is patient zero? I remember that. I still don't have a good answer for that. But other than people talking in my ear from Fort Belvoir.
So when I was researching Matt Pottinger today, I found out that he won some kind of an award from the Marine Corps for intelligence. I don't know what the award is, but it was the.
Well, he was 5 years as a Wall Street Journal appointed.
That's right. Oh, that's right. He was an asset. He was a journalist.
And they
working
brought
as
him
an intelligence asset.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
They brought him in just like they brought in Joe Biggs to write, basically propaganda stories. Biggs worked for Stanley McChrystal, and Matt Pottinger worked for Mike Flynn. And so Mike Flynn thought he did a good job for him in the spin room of the Afghanistan Voice of America. And so he brought Pottinger into the National Security Council. So Flynn dropped out after 10 days, and he kind of left Pottinger as his potted plant in the White House after he left. True story. All the way through until he resigns on January 6th. If I was Matt Pottinger, but here's why I say this French file is so important. Pottinger speaks this, perfect Mandarin. Pottinger happened to be in the same hotel in Hong Kong where SARS broke out, one floor below him. As a matter of fact,
really?
Yeah.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, SARS. Yeah, just happened to be there.
That was the first go round.
That was the first go round, and I think that was like the Mandarin Hotel in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first time around, and his wife just happens to be the person who came out with the HIV kit. That's pretty cool.
That's right. Matt Pottinger's wife is a virologist.
Yen Pottinger.
And she works at this Center for Disease. Wait, where does she work?
Well, she worked at the Broad Institute she worked in Columbia for a while, and then she was at the Broad Institute in Boston. She worked at the CDC for a while. She did. And then, of course, Paul Pottinger, the brother of Paul, comes up with the first coronavirus test before the CDC. This is all happening all in 1 month, January of 2020. So my speculation, and I'll give you time to turn on the high octane.
Okay, here we go. High octane speculation coming up.
Is if you want to make sure that you do some type of live exercise, you're the State Department, you want to do some kind of live exercise on Trump, it has to rise to the level of top secret. Because if it doesn't, you're not going to be able to put Matt Pottinger in there, and you're not going to be able to put the National Security Council in there. Right. So nobody's going to on the.
Look, he's a Bilderberger too.
He's probably a young global leader too. He loves Kissinger. Kissinger loves him. Loved his father. Kissinger
and he went to Charles Johnson's alma mater, Milton Academy.
And
where Charles Johnson was recruited by Alan Dershowitz.
And Milton Academy is where again?
It's in Boston.
Oh, it's in Boston. And then where did he go to undergrad?
Milton Academy, managing director of the Daily Beat. Oh, wait, let's see, journalistic career. Oh, he worked at Reuters. Yeah, he worked at Reuters. Let's see. I thought it said.
Well, anyway, the thing about Matt Pottinger, he's always right there where the action is to tell the DOD and NATO's propaganda line. It's just convenient that he's always right
Amherst.
there. Amherst in Boston. Yeah, that's right. A little bit outside of Boston, in central Massachusetts.
Right.
So here's a guy
the pharma capital of the world, right?
They got some pharma out there. Yeah.
I think,
I'm not sure which.
I don't know. I was watching Dark Journalist the other day, and he said that every pharma company has major headquarters within like 10 miles of MIT or something.
That is true. Route 128 is Pharma 28. Amherst is a little bit further out. But the interesting thing about Amherst was Whitey Bulger's brother was the president of Amherst. Not kidding. Not kidding here.
I know you're not, George. That's what's so funny. Like, truth is so much stranger than fiction.
It is. And of course, he's counsel on foreign relations. You're probably going to mention that in the coronavirus task force, even though he knew nothing about virology. So he is not only connected with Paul Pottinger, who has...
but his wife, Dr. Yen Pottinger, is a virologist at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention and was one of the first public advocates for social distancing.
Yes, she was. And he's also the person who put Deborah Birx in as the spokesperson for coronavirus. So you can see how Trump's kind of surrounded here. Now, somebody told me he didn't work with Peter Navarro on the Chinese travel ban, and I know that is true. And I know that happened at Mar-A-Lago. He worked for H.R. McMaster. There's another et tu, Brute.
Right. Trump. He also worked on his second tour in Afghanistan. He met U.S. General Michael T. Flynn, with whom he co-wrote a report.
Yeah, and I think anyway, this Flynn time is where I think you get into the marking, using SARS to mark terrorists. And if you spread these particles in such a way, these ferrous particles, I don't know if it's nanofarad and I don't know how it works, but this is the high octane speculation part. Apparently, with drones or with some type of satellite or something, or with just regular old Guardian Raytheon microwaves, it kind of makes sense. You put your hot dog in the microwave and it cooks, but you wrap it in aluminum foil and it sparks. right? So that's the idea here. Put the metal in the body, and then maybe you'll get some kind of cross section. I don't know if it's true or not, but I do think there was a terrorism tracking application here that we don't know about, that DARPA's been working on a long time, way before they ever created Moderna. Let's just
Okay, so somebody here is Ray Albright. There's a couple questions that somebody asked earlier. Ray Albright is saying dark journalist is a disinfo agent from way back. Just saying. Okay, well maybe he is. Like I look at the evidence. I try to look at the evidence that people present, and yeah, dark journalist. You know, he presents some, you know, edgy stuff. I get it, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't look at it. I kind of try to look at everything.
The best comment here is Thermobsterful, which he says Paul Pottinger will be really good friends with Snohomish County Man. Snohomish County Man is supposed to be patient zero in the United States. And he was supposedly, originally he got COVID in March, but then
Paul or Matt?
Paul is the guy who worked with the Seattle flu study. He's the guy who came up with the non-CDC test for corona. So, but when he got COVID, kept moving back in time, depending on people placing earlier blood tests with people raising antibodies for COVID. So now they've got him all the way back to January, and there's still people that are coming back that got COVID around Christmas time. And if you think about Christmas time, it's Christmas break. The students from China are coming back and visiting their parents, and vice versa. And it's the time of the Nancy Pelosi, that whole month of January, it's the time of the Nancy Pelosi, get your butt down to San Francisco for Chinese New Year's.
Right.
Then 24 hours goes by and Matt Pottinger's in with the president telling him this is the next 1918 flu. It's going to be way bigger than SARS. It's going to be 1918 flu and you need to shut down travel to China.
Dave Underdown is saying, who is the third Pottinger sibling?
Well, Yen is the wife.
Yen,
Paul,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who the third Pottinger sibling is. But I know Connie Chung was a mother-in-law of Matt Pottinger. Connie Chung later goes on to marry Maury Povich. So you know that.
Mother-in-law or stepmother?
Stepmother.
Stepmother,
or stepmother-in-law, I guess.
And then his dad also shacked up with Gloria Steinem, famous CIA asset, for 9 years also, I think.
That's true.
Yeah.
And also did a lawsuits with Gloria Steinem, I believe, for women's rights. And it all keeps coming back to this little island that I'm on. I'm not really on the island right now, but if you go over the causeway, you're on Palm Beach Island. It's West Palm Beach is where I am. But this Henry Kravitz of KKNR and Kissinger have been doing these overthrows from this island right here and across this little bridge since the 70s in South America. So why would they stop? They keep going with
They love islands.
They love islands.
They love islands.
Kravitz is supposedly living somewhere in like Monaco right now, so I wasn't able to get it. I was trying to, wouldn't it be a great interview? I hung out on Worth Avenue trying to find him. I found a Rothschild here that was from Bermuda.
Really?
Bermuda. I found a Rothschild from Bahamas.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to say Bermuda. Did he run into the USS Carr in 1996? Just asking. Yeah.
Well, there is some stuff that came out about the USS Liberty and some other cover-ups that Matt Pottinger has been mentioned. I don't want to be that guy who presents things without evidence, so I'll just stop right there. But we have great researchers.
Yeah, but if you were talking about that, George, it would kill the story that you're Mossad.
Right. Yeah, big Mossad guy. A couple of art dealers sent me a thing of John Podesta buying art after Hillary lost the election, and he had all this money left over from the DNC. I don't know that it was the DNC money that was buying all the artwork and storing it in the free port of Geneva, but the people from that's claimed they were Mossad said that, so there you go.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, too, because as I was looking through the Truth Social, I'd never looked at it before I was looking for that I have a hard time calling it a truth. Like, they call them truths instead of tweets. It's like, I don't know. I kind of have this highly reverent feeling for the word truth. So calling something as, mundane as a little text message of truth is kind of weird. But one of the truths that Donald Trump tweeted out, I'm going to just call them tweets. One of his True Social tweets was that he had the biggest fundraising day ever after he got raided, and that was a prediction. Like I think that if you look back on my Twitter feed, you'll see that I thought that Trump was probably going to raise more money that day than any time other, and at which point people started speculating, well, did Donald Trump call the FBI on himself?
No, that's not a. I mean, because Trump is so close to the Kravitz and Kissinger, you can't help have those ideas go through your mind that this is all just a paid and place show, and they're just trying to drain the people who would believe in the Constitution from every dollar they have, and they finally found something that will get people to open their checkbooks. But if you believe that, it's like, wow, we're really in trouble.
Yeah, then we're really in trouble. But then you're catching up to me. I think we're really in trouble. But
that's black pill stuff. It's really hard.
Well, it's funny. I got accused. My friend Andrew Meyer accused me today of being black pilled, and it's like I'm kind of laughing about all this stuff at this point. It's like, if. I mean, we'll see what happens with Liz Cheney today. I read someplace that she was like down by 24 points or something, but that would be like the ultimate, for her to be down by 24 points and then pull it out somehow. Like,
you speak of Liz Cheney, and Dick Cheney's the one who came up with the continuity of government and came up with these live exercises.
Right.
He was the one who was saying, hey, if we don't practice this thing, when it comes down to the real thing, we'll all not know what we're doing.
And that's when he was working for George Herbert Walker Bush, right?
Yeah. And some people say 9/11 was the first exercise of that. Other people say, like Peter Dale Scott, when I interviewed him, he said that January 6th also was a time. I'm saying that the Wuhan military games may have also been a live exercise as well.
Well, and I think TWA 800 might have been a test of the system, of the continuity of government system, just to see if their ability to maintain security and control media, in a small kind of like 2-man pads with the Navy there for insurance kind of situation. Who knows?
I think all these shoot downs especially, are provocative because it could very well involve militaries and missiles. Right. So if they don't throw an alert in for every shoot down, I was just told Meridian Airlines here, and there was a Rothschild connected with that, with the shoot down for the Ukrainian plane going to Jordan when Biden was in Jerusalem. So, I'm really on the wrong island. It's like it's coming at me from all sides. But going back to the Dave Underdown thing, which is, George, why are you saying her? It should be Elodie Claudel. She says she has it. And he brought this up in March 2020, right? And she says her fiance has it. And a third of the team of France has it. So why wouldn't she be patient zero? And of course, I was going by a lawyer, and what a lawyer was telling me about a person he knew at Fort Belvoir. But he has a good point, that this thing would have gone up the chain at Wuhan. It would have caused a 9/11 type alarm, and it would have gone all the way, just like our 9/11 alarms when somebody gets shot down, go all the way to the president.
Right.
The president of France would be a perfectly appropriate place, and it would cause sort of, if they couldn't figure it out and it was a new novel coronavirus, they would send in a State Department team. This squares with what my lawyer friend was telling me, to try to isolate the virus. And they would send in a guy from Defense Threat Reduction Agency, Michael Callahan, to go to 5 different hospitals to collect 6,000 blood samples to try to isolate it, to get a handle on it. So it would have been a bio 911, a Corona 911. Now the key is, so that would have meant Pottinger as the China guy on the National Security Council would have been in the driver's seat for this thing. And if you're Kissinger, you want him to be in the driver's seat for the live exercise, right? But now the key question is, when do you tell Trump? Pompeo standing on the stage saying, we're in the middle of a live exercise. And Trump standing next to him, Pence is standing on the other side. Trump says, and you didn't tell me about it.
But you were talking earlier on one of the videos that you tweeted today that is an exercise to test the president. Is that a National Security Council test for the president?
Mike Flynn was involved in one of these before I went to the trial. It was an evaluation. It's called an assessment. It came from the Department of Net Assessments, if you remember.
Right. Yes, I remember.
Remember Yoda? Remember the guy who did the Marshall Plan? His name is Marshall, Andy Marshall. Died recently. Called him Yoda. Office of Net Assessments would issue these types of tests. Flynn Intel Group hired a whole bunch of psychologists, right, to analyze Trump. Okay. And they did a thing called an assessment. Their PDF was called assessment.pdf. So Flynn Intel Group, the stone doesn't fall far from the apple doesn't fall far from the tree here, because Pottinger, who's the plant that Flynn puts in with Trump, comes up with a similar type of test for Trump later on. You could even say all the witch hunts are tests for Trump to see if he'll try to obstruct justice. You have the Mueller report. There's a potential place Trump could have obstructed justice, impeachment 1 and 2, J6, etc.
Does the president have the ability to say to the National Security Council, you're not allowed to test me?
Well, we got into this argument because people said that the Trump president can declassify everything. And I said, I don't think that's true. I think there's a higher level of classification for Department of Energy for nuclear and biological. Nuclear and biological is so important that we have to be able to test the loyalty of the president and the vice president. And as
judged by who?
Well, Congress voted on it, is the argument. National Security Act of 1947 put in the CIA, and the Department of Energy Act of 1953 or 54 put in the capability of a security envelope for nuclear and biological weapons. And again, the FBI didn't come out and say Atomic Espionage Act. They just came out and said Espionage Act of 1917. But they're citing a predicate. We're going to court in 2 days, citing the predicate of the Espionage Act of 1917. Right? And if you remember the Espionage Act.
That's Woodrow Wilson and Edward Mandelhouse, right?
And that's the Zimmerman letter, which is a foreign adversary conspiring with another adversary to try to do espionage on the United States, give up shipping information so the U-boats can sink the things. And if you attack from the south, was the letter by Zimmerman to the Mexican envoy, and hold down the army there, then we'll attack from the north. That's where the Espionage Act came from. So this has to be some kind of.
So that was never made unconstitutional or taken away. I know that there was didn't Woodrow Wilson throw a bunch of newspaper editors and writers in prison?
They were held for sedition, I think. I think that's
right. Yeah.
I think there is a sedition provision. John Adams had this sedition acts, but they were declared unconstitutional, I thought. But I do think there was a sedition provision of the Espionage Act. But the FBI isn't being transparent about what part of the Espionage Act are they talking about. But consorting with a foreign power is the thing everybody thinks about.
Mm-hmm.
Consorting with a foreign power is the thing everybody thinks about.
Well, that would be the ultimate, right? To prove the Russian collusion. It's we were right. It was Russian collusion after all, right?
And I hate to say this, but I keep going to these very public incidents. They go to Helsinki in 2018, and Putin gives Trump the soccer ball, and Trump says, Pakistani mystery man working for W. Wasserman Schultz, and blows the Mossad spy ring in Congress. John Brennan, ex-former CIA, flips out and says he's colluding with the Russians. And I think that Trump picked up the phone and called Vladimir and said, hey, what do you know about coronavirus? And I think they said, well, your own DTRA And DARPA have been working with the Pakistanis for the last.
In fact, Russia is completely surrounded by labs on every border.
Yeah, I mean, we've been watching Imran Awan and Rahm Emanuel have a lab.
And we know what the labs are for because they used to be part of the Soviet Union and they're just using them over again.
The lab in Kazakhstan that Ken Alibak was at used to be a Soviet lab.
Right.
And the coronavirus.
I think half the labs in Ukraine used to be Soviet labs.
They were all Soviet labs. And
Yeah.
so that's why, and Trump did get a file on the Pakistanis had a direct relationship with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Anthrax was one program. Coronavirus was another. There was two other ones, Brucella and some other stuff that it doesn't seem like has been released. But Trump did consort with a foreign power to see who was attacking him. What do the Chinese have and why are they attacking us? Right? But is that consorting to hurt the United States or is that consorting to save the United States? So what is in there that
my question, and a spook friend of mine that you and I both know called me up one day and he asked me if I wanted to help the government with January 6th. And I said to him, which government are you talking about? And he goes, the American government. And I said, well, I know that you think that you know who the American government is, but which American government are you talking about? And he said, the only one that counts. And I said, which one is that? And he goes, the one that could kick down your door and take your stuff. And it's like, that's where I think that's what we've been reduced to at this point.
Well, yeah, I agree that if we stop thinking and stop being agile on our feet, I mean, the Trump mistypes one letter and he gets around the whole act for outer spies.
Right, because then Peter and George you get to make wild speculation on YouTube, where we put it, but we cover ourselves because we put up this banner, and then somehow the information gets out anyway. Whether or not anything gets done with the information, we'll find out.
Well, I came down here a couple days ago, and Trump's tweeting Matt-A-Lago twice. Mm-hmm. When he's never, ever misspelled Mar-A-Lago, ever, because it's like something that he wants to put in 50-foot lights,
Sure, yeah. You would think that he'd pay attention to his favorite thing.
I just think it's brilliant. So President Trump, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. If you put out Stu-A-Lago just for fun one time, to do the dad, that would be kind of fun.
Right, I mean, exactly. Connie-A-Lago.
Or Pot-A-Lago.
Pot-A-Lago, yeah.
That'd be kind of fun.
Mar-A-Lago, yeah.
But can you show people the Truth Social since you went to all the trouble to dig for those truths?
Yeah, but I think the only way I can do it is probably like hold it up because they don't have a web client. So let me see, Truth Social. I had to search. I went scrolling through his timeline and I didn't see it, but then I found it this way. And let me see if I can get my. You can see my clock here. This is how I keep time. All right, camera. Can you refocus? Here we go.
I'm going to cause you to blow up all your. It should be Stan-A-Lago, not Stu-A-Lago. Stan-A-Lago. Yeah.
Okay, Stan-A-Lago, and I have to put my finger on there. Republicans could not
there it is.
win many additional seats in both the House and the Senate because of the strong backlash at the raid at Matt-A-Lago. Polls are showing that some of the lost Republican territory over the last number of weeks has been more than made up with the unannounced break-in by the FBI, which should never have happened.
Yeah, there's the Matt-A-Lago. And I think people are misinterpreting me. This happens a lot where I say, here's what I just heard, because I'm on press row. They have a kind of a scrum area.
Here's another one. Let me see if I can bring it up. There was more than one. Republicans could win many additional seats. Oh, wait, maybe that's the same one. Sorry, same one, different color. I apologize.
But you could see the Matt-A-Lago a lot better there.
Yes, you could.
I'm on press row here, where everybody takes a picture of Mar-A-Lago from the causeway,
Mm-hmm.
the intercoastal. So I'm reporting what I hear the other people say. And when they say, "Oh, this proves he's treason," will there be a raid? Will there be a second raid? They're filming because they think there's going to be another raid where they all come descending on Trump's place like they descended on Roger Stone's place.
Mm-hmm.
Where they bring up the speedboats and they drop in the 82nd Airborne and they all converge. I'm not kidding. This is what the CNNs and the MSN.
This is like when Hillary Clinton relaunched her presidential campaign. Do you remember when she launched her presidential campaign and somebody hung posters in front of her campaign headquarters that say, "Don't say this word and don't say that word," and then the posters got more media coverage than Hillary Clinton, so she had to relaunch her campaign like 6 weeks later at Roosevelt Island in New York, and it looked like Escape from New York. You had Navy SEALs in boats going around, and helicopters flying, and there's only one way in and one way out of Roosevelt Island. I think that's not on a boat, which is taking the tram.
Yeah, that's right. I wonder if you doctored that island. I know a friend of yours did the flying monkeys, the Hillary flying monkeys, which I still think is the most brilliant street art ever. Maybe the Trump thing poster in over by the Getty. That's close.
The Trump sign was pretty good, yeah. But
pretty good.
Flying monkeys is good. That's Sabo. It's pretty good.
Flying monkeys are good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you put the words "don't say Benghazi" or "don't say Whitewater" or "don't say Rose Law Firm."
Don't say conspiracy or don't say. I can't remember what the words were, but
yeah, that's pretty good. But I'm just saying this goes. I hate to go back to the Dave Underdown thing. I should have. I was listening to this lawyer, who was supposed to come down. It would have been great if the lawyer would have come down and said, "Hey, I got this person," and said for himself. But Dave was saying, "Hey, patient zero really is the person who says they were sick, not the person who's denying they're sick." I didn't know the person was denying they were sick at the time, by the way. But there really was a French 911 here. I didn't realize it was a French lab until a few days later. So Dave was right about that as well. And the third of the French team being sick. And the other two French-speaking countries also had the highest proportion of sick people, as well as the Italians, but Belgium and also Luxembourg. And if I had thought about it, there was also a patient who had come back home early from Asia and had also gotten sick, a cab driver that was not at the games, but was coming back from Italy, where the Italians had an outbreak in Siena in September. So there was a huge French connection. I missed it. Dave got it way back then. If I wish I'd have listened to him and just said, "Ellie Clendell, patient zero," I would be the smartest guy on the block. That didn't happen. And Dave is the smartest guy on the block.
So how does that jive with the other patient zero, the Wuhan Games patient zero?
I said all along that there was a breakout in Virginia in July and August, and that those patients went to the community hospital at Fort Belvoir, and that's where this person supposedly was potentially exposed and therefore vaccinated. Who said anything about being contagious, Donnie? I said vaccinated, which means you're not contagious. You're not spreading anything. That never made it to the nightly news.
Well, no. That was what Joe Biden said before. Joe Biden said that if you got vaccinated, that you were not contagious, or he said you wouldn't get it again.
There was a breakout of a strange flu all around Fort Belvoir before the athletes ever left. All right, and so vaccinating for what Defense Threat Reduction Agency does for new novel viruses is their job is to isolate the new novel virus.
Weren't there two doctors Fort Belvoir that mysteriously died also?
Yeah.
About the same period? Yeah, they were murdered the same period of time?
Yeah, well, it was later. I don't know if my contact, my lawyer friend was Brian Lloyd. He was supposed to be at the March 2020 thing, come down and talk about this, but I don't know if his contact or his whistleblowers at Fort Bell were the doctors or not, because patient attorney-client privilege. But they were murdered on their front yard, which is really strange, because the first attempt at the robbery where they died was on a Tuesday and was unsuccessful. So the robbers came back 3 days later and then murdered them on their front yard. Again, no coverage of this, but they were the ones who did the testing of our athletes. Remember, this whole story starts with the Chinese saying the Americans brought it here. And I'm trying to say these people are not just regular American athletes. They're State Department, they work for NATO, and they weren't born in the United States. So how are you saying, why are we going to go to World War III here when these aren't American athletes? These aren't regular American athletes. So that was my angle, because the World War III angle. But if I'd had a little more je ne sais quoi, maybe I would have listened to Dave and said, wait a minute, we got somebody here who admits they're patient zero and doesn't think anything of it.
Well,
right?
I found it's Dr. Edward McDaniel.
Yeah,
and
his wife.
His wife, Brenda McDaniel.
Yeah, and she was the doctor for Hillary Clinton. Yeah, in the Clinton White House, and Bill Clinton, and the insiders, and Vince Foster. I mean, for the 93 to 2001 Clinton White House, she was the nurse. Sorry, she was the nurse, the Army nurse for them, did all their physicals and stuff.
It's interesting. The page on ABC News is unavailable, but I could probably find it on.
Well, and he was the one who vaccinated people on battlefield viruses. So if Saddam Hussein was threatening,
so if you had a bunch of military people who were going over to Wuhan, for example, and they were going there to compete, and you wanted to vaccinate them, he might be the guy who did that.
He was unequivocally the guy. I wrote a book about it called The Black Doctor Murders. She was a nurse, but I just didn't want to say the Black Doctor and the Black Nurse murders. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when Saddam Hussein was talking about anthrax. So this same doctor at Fort Belvoir made sure that they had the latest and greatest anthrax. And the reason why his wife was over at the White House was the same thing. If Bill Clinton is flying, or Hillary Clinton's flying into Kosovo under gunfire, right? Remember that helicopter ride where she had to, duck under the gunfire? You want to make sure you vaccinate.
Except there was video of her like walking and laughing and shaking people's hands, and that never happened. Yeah, okay.
Well, you still need to have the vaccination. So it would make sense that those two kind of work together in tandem. Edward, I believe Edward, had the latest and greatest of what Defense Threat Reduction Agency had developed for battlefield vaccines. And then his wife was making sure the diplomats in the Clinton White House had the latest and greatest vaccines. So all I said was, and I told this to Donnie on air, it's recorded, Donnie O'Sullivan, who said anything about her being contagious. I said she raised the antibodies. But I did find it interesting that the top level diplomatic security services people were in Wuhan when this live exercise occurred. If I would have listened to Dave, 2020 hindsight, and I would have said Elodie Claudel was patient zero, and there was some type of State Department team that was sent from Fort Belvoir as a response team, I would have been closer to what a live exercise looked like. And I would look a lot smarter, but I didn't. But now I can say it because the box does say President of France on it, top secret, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting that the people that they arrested, and I had a picture, but it just turned black, so I can't really show you. I don't know why the ABC News story, I have to go to Internet Archive to find it. Husband and wife military doctors gunned down in front yard, suspects apprehended. They were charged with second-degree murder, which is curious why they wouldn't be charged with first-degree murder.
Especially after they came back after 3 days. But apparently the son is the one who led them back twice. The son of these doctors, a doctor and nurse. So that's also interesting because that makes me think that he's a handler of some type or some type of intelligence guy. Who leads murderers back to their home twice for faking burglaries? It's odd.
I don't know if I understand the point you're making.
I'm saying that there's these two guys that are the killers,
Yes.
and there's a third guy, which is the son of the victims.
Yes.
They all go as a gang on Tuesday to try to kill the mother and father. Okay? There's another guy in this that's not being listed here, which is the son.
The son. Okay.
Yeah. They don't find them home. So they come back 3 days later to rob the house. To me, if I'm robbing the house.
So why is the son with these two guys?
Because he had some kind of anger or money issue with the father, or maybe money issue with the son. And the reason why they came back supposedly 3 days later is they wanted him to open the safe. Okay, at gunpoint, which doesn't jive with the facts of the crime because they were.
There's
killed.
lots of things you can keep in safes too.
Well, and the patient list of who they treated in Wuhan may be one of those things or whatever. So you don't know why they came back, but I'm just saying that it's odd behavior to have somebody under gunpoint in front of a safe and say, open the safe and give me the money, and then march them both out onto the front lawn and execute them in front of the neighbors. We talked to kids and people who lived in the neighborhood. I went to their crime scene a couple of times saying, hey, yeah, that's the house. They're right there is out there in the front where the chairs were. That's where the bodies were.
Right. And Donnie O'Sullivan was there too, right?
No. Donnie O'Sullivan wasn't there.
Jim Acosta.
No.
No, they weren't there. Yeah. Okay.
No. But, this again, I'm genuflecting now to Dave Underdown because he said, I don't really think she's patient zero. She might have been part of some kind of response team, but it's going to be the French girl.
Right.
And it's going to be probably, if the Chinese are suspected, then it's going to generate a 911. If the Americans are suspected, it's going to generate a 911.
Right. So this reminds me of something else. It's like, remember when there was that the person who wrote an article, I think it was the New York Times, about taking something off of Trump's desk, and there was somebody that you were, I think you were
Fiona Hill.
So it was Fiona Hill.
Yeah, Fiona Hill said sometimes they take things off the president's desk because he can't be trusted.
But didn't it come out later that it wasn't her? It was somebody else.
I don't know that to be true. I still think it's Fiona Hill, even if she said she didn't do it, because she did make testimony in front of Congress to the effect that the president couldn't be trusted with some programs.
Yeah, no. I remember when that happened. I think that maybe there was a parallel construction or something that happened to try to.
Well, they tried to say Vindman, who was in the White House Communications Office and also the National Security Council for the Ukraine, they tried to say he did. Vindman. He was at the
Council on Foreign Relations, Vindman.
Well, his brother, interestingly enough, had a metal company, high-end metal company in Ohio with Kolomoisky, the oldest brother, and then the two twins.
You're making that up.
No. Look at. No,
I'm kidding. I know you're not making
war
it.
material, like we need the. I don't know. We need the lithium triggers, for the polonium, in order to do the, gun type atomic bomb, that type of thing, where it was, trace metals, also titanium. So look at Vindman's Leonid Vindman. There's the two Vindmans that did the testifying against Trump, but the third one was in metals, or the younger one was in metals. I can't remember. It was the older one was in metals in Ohio, just like Kolomoisky, for trace.
Like Robert Mueller's father was in metals.
Trace atomic metals. And these metals become really important when you do the research at Los Alamos, or you do the research at Tennessee Valley Authority, and you find out that only a certain element, like barium, can be used to slow down neutrons. And then you find cadmium, the only metal that can be used that's porous enough at the right tolerances to let neutrons go through.
Well, you said something that made me think of something. So there's a guy named John Wiseman who used to work at Disney Imagineering, and I don't know him personally, but he and I both work for the same guy at Imagineering. And so I follow him on Twitter, and he does some very interesting things with scripted bots. And I wanted to show you something that I discovered today. This is completely non sequitur. It has nothing to do with Mar-A-Lago, but we're going to wrap up here soon. So I wanted to show you something. So if you go into the Duke report, you said you were talking about New Mexico, and if you go into search engines, which I probably should retitle that something else because it's really search engines and resources. There's a new thing. There's Sky Circle's Twitter bots, but this is John Wiseman just built this. This is the global GPS jamming chart. Okay, so this is places where GPS jamming is actively going on the planet Earth, and of course, this is where all of the action is in Ukraine and Russia. But you see, there's a lot of GPS jamming going on. I guess this is over this Mediterranean off the coast of Lebanon. But I thought, well, what's going on in the United States? War zones, active war zones are kind of like interesting, but like I was looking at New Mexico, and well, first of all, down here on the Mexican-Texas border, there's like active in Plata, Texas, and is that Schaefer, Texas? There's obviously there's GPS jamming going on down there, so that's probably some kind of cartel action or something going on. But I looked at New Mexico, and this is 2 to 10% GPS jamming. But I just thought, well, this is interesting. I not in Alamogordo, right? But like up all just around New Mexico here, it seems like GPS is being jammed. So total non sequitur. I don't know what it means, but this is a new resource, the GPS jam thing, on the Duke report. So there it is. I don't know if you have any comment or not.
one of the things, the bona fides that I kind of was seeing if Deep Uranium was telling me the truth or not about his background at DHS and whether he knew really 6 guys that had 100 years experience in Homeland Security before even Homeland Security was called Homeland Security, was I started asking him about different places like this. Mm-hmm. And he talked to me about this one place in West Virginia at the top of this mountain where nobody used any GPS signal, where they had some kind of radio telescope or tested some kind of stuff. But like these zones were for government installations and so forth that didn't have GPS. Right. Or any signals. You couldn't use even cell phones in the towns, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if these are like military test ranges or something where they're testing some kind of new.
Dave Underdown is mentioning Strobe Talbot, who was the roommate of Bill Clinton at Oxford and then went to the Brookings Institution. And of course, half of the people that were infiltrated.
I think he was counsel on foreign relations, Strobe Talbot. Yeah.
I don't go to CFR very often because it's such a big pool that I don't want to boil that ocean. But I do go to being roommates with Bill Clinton. There's only so many people, and he's also a Tragedy and Hope guy, a Carol Quigley guy.
Yep.
And that's where I went to school, Miami of Ohio, not far from Dayton. We played Dayton every year twice, and the polonium triggers were. And I've been to the nuclear Fahrenheit, where they did nuclear enrichment and did fuel rods for the Manhattan Project and so forth. And that was the heartland. Polonium triggers on one side, Piketon not too far away, enrichment plant on the other side. And
more murders.
Well, and there's drug murders there, and they're about ready to go to trial. They're about ready to try. The walkers who murdered um, the gang that was down there around
Right.
Pike.
So are you going to cover that? Because like last time you tried to cover that, didn't you get pulled over by the FBI or pulled into court or something?
I was trying to find out where the missing uranium was from Russia, and everybody all of a sudden wants to talk about something that's happening on the coast.
Right. Oh, that's right. About the port of Charleston.
But after I heard the evidence, and again, I'd met the guy the day before. I'd said no. If there's an attack, it'll be in Norfolk. It's going to be a guy named Ibrahim. What I don't get credit for, Peter, is not only Donnie O'Sullivan twisting that story to somehow forgetting I said the word Ibrahim and forgetting I predicted it would be Norfolk. Not only did he completely twist the story on that one too, but I didn't get credit for the Ibrahims getting arrested the next year. The Ibrahim gang got arrested. These are the same people who did the bombing in India.
And what did they get arrested for?
Espionage and plotting attacks in the United States to do bombing. They bombed in Sri Lanka. These are the same people that end up doing the Sri Lanka bombings recently for the overthrow of Sri Lanka. So that's the number one thing that really pisses me off about Donnie O'Sullivan. Not that he takes my stories when I say Norfolk and then he puts Charleston in there and he says George said Charleston. You can hear me clearly say at 59 minutes Norfolk. But the fact he doesn't give me credit when I am right, that's what really bugs me. And they both 60 Minutes and Donnie suppressed the fact that I was right about this person being diplomatic security services, carrying 9mm weapons, trained to stop enemy terrorist attacks on our diplomats. Right? They paint her as this person hiding in her room, behind the painted glass, and it's all. But wait a minute, you're going to be protecting our diplomats, right? Like our 5-star generals and the head of NATO. And you're afraid of me, who I never even went anywhere near your house. So
you're very tall, George.
See, it is the one who put your house on and your dog and your daughter on TV. I never went near you.
Right.
So anyway, I don't want to get on a Donnie.
Maybe not. But if you want people to continue to battle for the forces of truth, how do they take care of you, George?
Right there, Peter. I'm telling you right now. I did get $5 from our last episode, so thank you to $5 contributor. You know who you are, but you can contribute via PayPal or Venmo. And you know what I think it was, Peter? People were inspired by your Buy Me a Coffee.
They were. Well, maybe you said last time that you were thinking about setting up Buy Me a Coffee. So a couple people bought me coffees. I think just this morning. So thank you. That's to everybody who's buying coffee. That's great. And I just got a report. I think I sold $210 worth of T-shirts.
Whoa!
Last month. So it's going.
That's cool. That's cool. That's taken off. All right, Peter. Well, let's do this again Thursday. I'll have the news of the big affidavit thing. I expect it'll be rejected because we are in the land of Jeff Epstein's court and police force.
Well, yeah, and it's going to be sources and methods, right?
Yeah, sources and methods. But again, if you just do simple deductive, there's only like 3 people it could be. Flynn, but that was too long ago. I'm talking about people who were actually in National Security Council at Mar-A-Lago.
Right.
Right. Between Christmas and the 3rd or 4th of January.
Yeah, but I still think the 1 degree of CFR rule works. It's like,
how many people?
If you have a suspect, no. How many people in the National Security Council that were in Mar-a-Lago belong to the Council on Foreign Relations? Okay, it's just a Venn diagram.
I would say that there's a big circle for CFR and there's a small circle that's way inside. But we should run that. It'll be interesting to see if Peter Navarro was Council on Foreign Relations. That's a good question. I'll check that for the next show.
Okay, very good. Thank you, George.
All right, thank you.
Oh, wait, one more question.
Sure.
Somebody asked, what happened to Andy? How is Andy? Do we know?
Hey, Andy disappeared after we had a show. He had said that gold nanoparticles somehow had uptake into tissues, filtering tissues, kidney, liver, spleen, lungs, potentially near the heart. I had said nanoferritin. We had talked about silicon dioxide with Ken Alabek's concoction. Some other people said graphene, and after that, we have not heard from him.
From I'm talking about Andy W.
Andy W. or Andy DeBala?
Andy DeBala, yeah.
Yeah, Andy DeBala. That's the last time with the gold nanoparticle. There was also a show we did on pseudo viruses.
Right.
So I don't know which show it was, but after that, I have not heard from him.
Okay, well.
The server got taken.
Sure.
So I can't communicate with those guys anymore. But I think, I still, Andy, if you're out there listening, can you call in? I still think I'm right. It's going to be nanofarad, and it's not your damn gold particles.
Okay. I can't. All right.
That was a test. You know why they use gold, Peter? Was the Rutherford used gold initially because it really shows up nice and bright.
I'm totally out of the loop on this argument. So
you're not going to give that to every man, woman, and child and terrorist for them to uptake in their lungs. It's too expensive. Okay. It's gold. It's going to be iron. It's going to be nanofarad, Andy.
All right. Somebody asked me to ask you that question at the beginning, and I did. So there it is. All right, everybody. Support us down below, and we'll see you on Thursday. Bye.
Thanks, Peter.